for couples where it's toxic, or there is domestic violence or verbal abuse, what about those situations? Because I've been through an abusive relationship early on in my life. My eldest son's father was abusive, and it took me a long time to get to the point where I could take responsibility for the part I played in that. So what do you say to people who are going through that? And look, it happens on both sides. I know men who are abused by women and vice versa. So I don't want to make it a gender thing, because I know you work with both men and women. So it's all well and good for us to say, well, that it takes two to tango. You have to take responsibility for your part. What do you say to women or men, I suppose, who are in a domestic violence or abusive or toxic relationship?
Oh, it's such a great question, because I myself have never been in one. So it's very hard, for me to give advice to someone who's sitting in the middle of a toxic relationship that is, maybe getting whether it be physical, mental, financial, because it happens in all different forms. And, we've had quite a lot of clients who have been, let's say financially abused. So they're only given a certain amount of money every week, and they're too scared to leave, because how are they going to survive? How are they going to support their children? Same thing with verbal, people just don't, relationships are about respect. And we know deep in here when something's not right, but sometimes we just don't have the people that we can ring and support. And at the moment we've got 3 clients that are from domestic abuse. So what can I do to help? I give them the ability to contact someone to help them, to help empower them, to actually, before they've even left the relationship, to have some form of strength, so that they know that there's a support network if they leave out there that can help and support them. But yeah, you're right. How can someone who's in a domestic violence relationship, how can I sit here and say they're enabling it? But when you talk to the professionals, to some extent, we just become shells of ourselves and we let it happen. And later on we look back and we probably go, we should have done things differently. But everything is a journey, and you'll do it on your own terms, and you'll do it when you're ready, or when that person comes into your life, whether in your case it was me that came into your life and said, okay, Trace, how do we get this done so you can move on with your life? That will happen in a lot of cases to those people, but they've got to have a want to do it too, because
so you're not saying you have to take responsibility for the abuse. You're saying, it's about taking responsibility for yourself, your own feelings, how much you empower yourself, and then what you can do to strengthen yourself so you do have the courage to leave, and you're armed with whatever you need emotionally, financially, physically, to keep safe. So it's about just, even if it's that little corner of your world that you get to go, you know what, I can take responsibility for that. And even if it's baby steps, even if it's just in your thoughts on what you feed yourself.
You know what it was like. If you say something and someone's going to hit you, you're just not going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to stand up to them, say something, and before you know it, you end up in hospital. As I said, I've never been there, but there's some of the stories that I've heard and some of the conversations I've had with people. You'd never put someone in that place. But, what it might be is just a conversation and preparation and just, and also it can just be a conversation, because in a lot of cases what I've found with our clients is people around them aren't aware. Or one particular client that I know of, that story is just dreadful, her family knew that it was going on. They all sort of alienated because they couldn't help her. They then chose to step away and leave her to deal with it herself. And she felt so isolated by the whole thing that, by the time her and I had a conversation, it was putting support groups in place for her. So she had the expertise of a subject matter expert that could help her, because that's not me. I don't do that. But what I do is I enable it. So I help them. I give them the resources. I hold their hand. I'll say, go and have a chat to this person. This person can really help you. or whatever the case may be, but we're giving them sort of a little bit of strength and support. But by no means when it comes to domestic violence am I an expert at it. It's not something that I tend to be an expert at, but what I do is I can put people in touch with the people that can seriously help them.